Demons win. Yeah, demons win. Demons win. Satan loses in the end. You do too. Gotta say how I feel.
What's up, guys? Here today we're in San Lorenzo, California. We're here to interview some protesters that are angry regarding some transphobic slurs that were said a few days ago here at the San Lorenzo Library. It was in the context of a drag queen story time that was teaching young children about the importance of drag queens. Let's see what they have to say. Hey, so can you tell me what we're doing out here today?
We are protesting what happened at the library, the San Lorenzo Library. What happened yesterday with the drag queen story time. We are here, we are out, we are proud, and we're here supporting the LGBTQ community.
Can you explain for those people who don't know what occurred at the library?
Yeah, so what occurred at the library was that there was a drag queen doing a story time to preschoolers, and a group of the Proud Boys stormed in and interrupted the whole event, yelling transphobic slurs and other things like that.
Okay. Do you agree with any of the criticism regarding that some things are inappropriate to teach to some of the younger children, such as something like drag queen?
Absolutely not. Education is the best thing for these kids right now. I'm transgender myself, and I would have found my identity and been a lot more comfortable in myself if I was educated about these topics at a much younger age. So education is what we need right now because education promotes acceptance and inclusivity.
Do you feel like there is like any age limit though, like perhaps similar to the way sex education in school, usually that starts typically like in middle school? Do you feel like there should maybe be like a similar type of like a strategy there to maybe wait till for like the older ages?
I think that we should start as early as possible, obviously with using topics that are, suitable for every age level and grade. But I do think that there needs to be, in California's education system, as well as the American education system, more emphasis on minorities and LGBTQ plus identities.
Do you feel like there's anything inherently sexual in nature when it comes to drag queen?
No.
Okay. Because for some people, when they watch, drag queen shows on the I guess on RuPaul's Drag Queen. There is a lot of, it shows beauty in kind of a feminine type of way. And in a sense, it is a little bit of sexual in nature. Do you agree with that at all?
Drag is a form of art. It's a form of identity, and it's a form of expression. I don't believe that there's anything sexual about it. It's a form of expression. It's a form of art.
So I just want to ask you about what brought you out here today.
Well, to support the Proud Boys. They're a wonderful group of men defending children against child molestation, which is what Drag Queen Story Hour is. It's a very advanced form of child molestation. So I'm so happy that the men of America via the Proud Boys are standing up to defend children.
And have you seen like any specific evidence about the drag queens actually molesting the children? Or
I know that is the psychological purpose behind the whole thing. As my sign says, they're an outgrowth of a group called NAMBLA. Back in the 90s, I went and filmed the group NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association, and their motto is sex before 8 or it's too late. I filmed them in the so-called Pride Parade in San Francisco many times. And so the Drag Queen Story Hour is a more advanced form of psychological manipulation beyond the capabilities that NAMBLA could present.
Right. So why do you feel like they haven't actually said it out loud that that's what they want to do, that they want to actually support like what you're talking about with NAMBLA, because it's National Association Men-Boy Love?
It'd be too traumatic. They'll never admit it. But that's the goal. They're grooming children to accept sex and be shattered at the earliest age. And as I just told that lady, it's a religious battle between Christianity and Satanism. The entire LGBT movement is dedicated to Satanism. So the reason they don't come out is that people would be too shocked and they would get a backlash to stop them. But if they do it in incremental steps, their goal is to sexualize children and to legalize child sex. That's their ultimate goal. So they're well on their way, as this crowd demonstrates.
if they are in favor of Satanism, why haven't they said any of these things out loud? I think if you probably asked a lot of them, probably I would imagine none of them would ever say that they're in favor of Satanism. Are they just hiding it, or is it more like a metaphor? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's an actual thing, and I think Satanism, people can support Satanism without even realizing it or even admitting it. Like you mentioned, that I could say everything you're doing is Satanist. Oh no, they would deny it, even though they would continue to do the same satanic things. So we're talking about two different groups. Christianity has Christ as a standard bearer. We follow as our leader. The Sodomite movement, the LGBT movement, their standard bearer is the Marquis de Sade. If you've ever heard of him, he was a noble, I guess a French mini nobleman, and I forget, 1500s, maybe 1800s. But his whole thing, that's where we get the word sadism from. His whole thing was that if there were sexual, say, what he called taboos. Let's say the Catholic Church was against incest. So he would say, oh, that's a rule against it? I'm going to break it. Why? Because I don't care about God. I tell God what to do. He doesn't tell me what to do. So de Sade was dedicated to breaking these taboos, such as incest or child sex.
But they as far as the LGBT group, they haven't said anything in favor of incest. They haven't gone. It just seems to be like essentially a man dressing as a woman. Well, why does this seem like such a big deal?
Well, because it's psychotic, for one thing. If you can normalize psychotic, you start at incremental steps, and then you go along the way. And once you normalize a man pretending to be a woman, even mutilating themselves, if you did that in private, that's your private business. But when you try to make a public policy and influence children on that, and mandate that children be taught that it's okay, that's a big, fantastic difference. That's the objective of the whole sodomite movement.
I think if you were to ask some of the members of the group, they would actually say they're not necessarily promoting the idea of transgenderism or even any kind of like sex, gender change, anything like that. They're essentially just talking about the idea of just a drag queen, just essentially just reading from a book.
It's far more than that. That is a surface story, because you're getting these children used to when you have a drag queen sitting in front of them, that person is a psychotic individual to even be acting like that. But you're trying to normalize to young children that it's fun. You bring the bright colors in, the sequins, the costumes, the dancing. So you're trying to normalize, and in many places, when they have a drag queen story hour, they have the children will walk over or touch the drag queen, because they're getting the children used to being touched by a molester. You're breaking down the children slowly but surely, and so they'll have no qualms about doing. When you tell them later to support child sex, they will obey, because you've already trained them.
What I imagine some people would say is essentially that it seems like you're kind of going too far, like the psychotic thing about with the drag queens. I mean, nobody would ever be accepted into a psychiatric hospital simply for being a drag queen. I mean, don't you agree with that?
No, it's part of a whole. If you go back, I believe it was in the 70s, in the psychological diagnosis book of the American Psychiatric Association, their psychiatric manual, homosexuality was listed as an intrinsic disorder. I think that was the word.
I mean, it was removed.
Yes, that's the point. That if you have enough power, you can shift what was a pathology into normality.
But how is that a mental illness to be homosexual?
I'm sorry?
How is that a mental illness to be homosexual?
It can be more so. It's a soul illness. What I'm saying is that.
So maybe not like a mental illness, but more like it's in the soul.
The mental is there, but it's a secondary. It's primarily a soul illness, which manifests as a mental illness as compared to the reverse. And it all comes about. There's a universal poison which poisons humanity, and it's hatred, resentment of parents. When we hate and resent our parents, it cracks our soul. And so we can have endless possibilities of pathologies, including what we're dealing with here.
What objective standard are you using to define psychosis? Because if you're simply defining it as just something you disagree with, then anybody could get diagnosed with psychosis. Normally, the way it gets defined is it can be like a delusion from reality, or it could be, but specifically if you're talking about getting admitted into a psychiatric hospital, there would have to be clinically related or clinically significant distress that's stopping you from being able to do your daily activities. You can't have a job, you can't function. But I mean, those things you're talking about, like homosexuality or being a drag queen, that doesn't really cause like a distress necessarily for people.
Well, not for the individuals, but when they start to take it out and organize as a group, especially to teach children that it's normal. I founded the Straight Pride Association. Our motto is normal, natural, healthy, sane. But so when you have people teaching children that what you just discussed is normal, but especially when you try to mandate laws that they be taught that. There's a difference between you privately discussing with a child and giving your opinion, and organizing with a group like that to have lawmakers pass laws that mandate that it be taught as normal.
How's the lighting doing? Is this my good side, Joseph?
Yeah, just get the straight front, Okay, so can you just explain what we're doing here today?
This is a rally to show solidarity for the LGBTQ community because a couple days ago the Proud Boys came here to break up a storytelling hour at the San Lorenzo Library, only because the person reading the story was a drag queen. If anybody else reading the story, it's a non-issue, but because it's a drag queen reading the story, the Proud Boys wanted to come in and bust it up, because clearly if a drag queen reads you a story, you're gonna become gay, which of course isn't true, but somehow they must equate that. I don't know. But we're here to show solidarity that the LGBTQ community will stand together and fight back against that sort of anti-gay hate speech and rhetoric. And those people were violent idiots is the right term to use for them. They've never been to a library in their lives. If you see their pictures, they're just these old, sad white men, amosexuals. And now you can't hear me.
Some people, they would say that drag queens, in a sense, there's a certain sexual aspect to it, kind of feminine beauty, that type of a thing. Do you feel like there is a certain kind of sexual aspect at all?
I think drag queens are people wearing makeup and sort of an outfit and a costume that makes them feel better. For me, it's no different than if a juggler in clown face came here and read a book. Nobody reading a book to a child is going to change that child's personal makeup. It just isn't. I'm 66 years old. I was never read to by a gay person, much less a transgender person or a drag queen. It was old white women in blue wigs or whatever, and I'm gay. So you're going to be who you are, and who's reading the story doesn't matter. It's entertainment while the story's being read. I don't see a sexual aspect at all.
What do you think? Some people just say that basically the children, they tend to change their minds a lot, but they kind of, going on to what you were saying, the theory is basically that they might think this is like an option for them, that okay, maybe I should become a drag queen as well. So it seems like you don't think that there's any legitimacy to that idea.
I think what it shows when maybe you're a child and you see a drag queen reading a book is that people can be different, and it's okay to be different. And if that's a problem for people, it's the people with their problem, not the kids and not the person reading the book. Our country, our world is made up of people who are different. And these same people, these same Proud Boy kind of people that are unhappy with the drag queen storytelling hour are unhappy with members of the Islamic faith. They are unhappy with anybody who doesn't look like them, act like them, and own guns like them. They're never going to be happy. So no kid's going to sit there and go, hey, I think I'll be a drag queen later on.
What do you think about, like, those drag queen shows? Was that RuPaul's Drag Queen? Do you think those shows, do they have any kind of sexual aspect? Because it does seem like normally I think they wear like high skirts and things like that. They're trying to show off a little bit. I mean, I think that's great. But Do you agree, at least in that respect, that there's at least some sexual aspect there?
It's an interesting question because why aren't you asking me about the Miss America pageant where they're wearing only a swimsuit?
But I mean, would you agree both of those things would probably be inappropriate with younger children? You know, like having like a model.
Miss America's on television. It's televised.
Sure, but we don't do those. I mean, we don't have those types of things like with like, you know, in a library with kids with like, you know, like models or things like that. Even if it's just like a straight woman or whatever, it would probably be a little bit inappropriate. Do you think so? Or
Did you see this drag queen and see how that person was dressed?
I did see the photo.
A lot of makeup, not very sexy at all.
But in some cases, you would agree it's possible to go too far in some cases. Do you agree?
I think I don't agree with almost anything you're saying here. It's a drag queen. And you raised a good example. RuPaul's Drag Race is a nationally televised program with millions of viewers. Where's the Proud Boys? Why aren't they storming that set? Why do they come here?
I think they just came here because specifically it was with younger children. I didn't see how old they were, but I know typically it can be pretty young, like, you know, you're talking 3 years old, something like that, 2 years old. But I mean, do you think maybe, because normally like when it comes to sexual education, we usually wait till something like 12, 13 years old, you know, like middle school age, you know, just for that, I guess, the appropriateness with their mental capacity. But do you think there's a little bit of a struggle there when it comes to, you know, finding the right age appropriate to show these things?
Do you know what story was being read at the storytelling hour?
No, what was that?
I don't know. But I'm sure it wasn't sexual in nature. It was a story with a drag queen reading it. I don't see anything sexual in that. And let's suppose the drag queen was showing some calf. Tarzan on TV, Batman with his bulging muscles, is that not sexually provocative? And kids are not turning into anything other than who they are supposed to be when they are born.